Hello, everyone. Here we are once again for round number five of the Tata Steel Chess 2022. In this game, we will feature Mami Jarab's game against Jordan Van Forest. Mami won his second game in a row. In the previous round, he won over Jan Christoph Duda. All right, without further ado, let's go through the game. Van Forest started with e4. Mami Jarab went for e5. Knight f3, knight c6. Okay, bishop to b5, a6. So we have the Roy Lopez. Bishop a4 was played by Van Forest. If, let's say, he captures and takes, we will have the Roy Lopez exchange variation, right? Okay. Went for bishop a4, knight into f6, castles, knight takes e4, d4, b5, bishop b3, and now d5. Now we have the open variation of the Roy Lopez. Okay, here's the open variation. D takes into e5, bishop e6. In the game, a4 was played by Van Forest. All right, I'm not really a fan of this move with a4. Okay, let's go back in time. In 2012, Uh, Mami Jarov played Judith Polgar, the best women player in the planet. Polgar was white at that time in 2012. Polgar in that game played knight bd2. The open Roy Lopez is one of Mami Jarov's pet lines against e4. In that game, Mami Jarov went for knight c5. Okay, Judith went for c3. d4 was played by Mami Jarov. Knight g5. Okay, a pretty interesting move. You would think that, oh, is it a free knight? Now, for example, if you take that knight on g5, just queen to f3, the pin on the knight to the rook on a8. Now, if, let's say, for example, the opponent protects the knight with the bishop, we have bishop takes f7 first. After king d8, then we have c takes d4, right? And it's winning for white, yeah? And if, let's say, you castles to inside, bishop takes e6 first, f takes e6, and queen takes e6, which favors white, yep, with the king in a not so safe position. Okay, let's say we continue with queen takes e5, and we have a4, right? Okay, let's go through the game. Okay, let's continue the game with Pulgar. So Pulgar played knight g5, Manijarov went for bishop d5, and Pulgar is actually, again, the strongest woman in the history of the game. Knight takes f7, king takes on f7. We have queen to f3 because of that pin, right? That pin to the bishop. After king e6, queen g4 check. Mamijar went for king f7. Pulgar played queen f5 check. King goes to e7, e6, now threatening queen to f7. Bishop takes e6, rook e1. Pulgar did not even take the knight on c5. Queen goes to d6, just bishop takes e6, knight takes, knight into e4. After queen to e5, bishop g5 check, king d7, knight c5 by Judith, takes queen f7, king d6, bishop e7 check. Okay, if let's say the king goes to d5, we have queen f3. And queen e4, we go c4 check. Yeah, that'll be nice. Yeah? Because if pawn takes, of course, queen takes e4 is mate. And if you capture with the king on c4, queen b3 is mate. Yeah. And in this position where the king was checked on e7, if let's say the knight takes on e7, this rook takes e5. Okay. Because if king takes, we have another rook to e1. And if, let's say, also after king d6, bishop e7, if you move back that king to d7, just bishop takes c5, and the rook will just take the queen. That's totally winning for white. Yep. So Porgar played a pretty combinative game here against Mamajaro back in 2012 in the Bled Olympiad. Yep. And probably also Mamajaro learned his lesson. You have to learn from your mistakes. Maybe this time, if you play knight g5, Mamijaro will play something else. Yeah, let's say in the game by. There's also a very famous game here by Garry Kasparov against Anand in the World Championship. Yes, where d takes c3 was played. Yeah, you can also go for that one. If you look at that game, knight takes e6 takes. Let's just briefly go into that World Championship. Queen d3. Was it the World Championship? Was it the World Championship? Yeah, it was in PCA. Yeah. Kasparov had this. He created this own organization, the Professional Chess Association, last time, 2000 and was it 2005? I guess. Was it in 2005? No, so 1995. Sorry, it was in 1995. Yeah. So this was the game knight b3 takes, and the very famous bishop h6 by Gary, and he went on to win the game, yeah, against Anand. All right, so that was two important games with the Roy Lopez Open. Okay. In this game by Van Forest, he played a4. This is not so venomous. So black just played b4, bishop into e3, bishop into e7. a5, the main point of a5 is to, again, to disconnect these two pawns. b4 could be a target later in the game, at the same time maybe this a6 pawn as well. All right, so castles, queen into d3, knight to c5, bishop takes c5, takes on c5, c3. Okay, knight goes back to e7 to protect the d5 pawn. Knight bd2, takes on c3, takes on c3, bishop a7. Now clearing that square for the pawn, yeah, with potential c5 and then c4. And knight e4, Van Forest is also an interesting player. Huh? He invited Mami Jarab to go for c5. Come on, do it. Wow, provoking his opponent to play c5. But in this case, c5 is not yet possible because of knight takes e6, hitting the queen. So Mami Jarab retreated his bishop on d7. And Van Forest was like, come on, play c5. Knight f, no, knight df3. Okay, Manager says, all right, let's do this. c5, e6, an interesting move. Okay, in the game, bishop e8 was played. Now, let's say, for example, pawn takes on e6. White can use that square for the knight. Yep. There is knight g5. Yes, the knight can jump on that square on e6. Yep. At the same time, the queen is also threatening mate on h7. If you prevent the mate with g6, the knight can capture on e6, double attack on the rook and the queen. Okay, good move by Van Forest. Mamijaro played bishop to e8, right, protecting f7. Knight g5, very straightforward, all right, threatening mate on f5. Sorry, on threatening mate on h7. So Mamijaro played f5 to block the threat on h7. And here Van Forest was lost in the woods. Yes, Van Forest was lost in the woods. He played knight f7, which was wrong. Okay, the intention was good, but he needs to insert the move queen h3. Okay, now look at what happened in the game. When he played knight f7, Mamijaro has rook takes on f7, bishop takes f7. After knight takes f5, now we have c4. So black gets two minor pieces for the rook. Yes. In this case, it is the knight and bishop for the rook. And this is too much for white in the game. Yeah. Now, looking back, instead of knight f7, okay, knight f7 again is a good move, but you have to play queen h3 first, an intermediate move on h3, threatening mate on h7, force on h6, or there are two ways. One is bishop to g6, but then again, if bishop to g6, you just go back to f3, right? Because c4, no more double attack on the queen and the bishop. That was the point of queen h3. And if you go h6, now is the time, the right timing of the move on f7. Like say, for example, you capture with the rook, takes. Knight takes f5, no more c4, right? No more threat. The queen is here. So in this case, white is up the exchange because bishop e6 is not possible. Just go knight takes e7 with a check. And if, let's say, bishop takes f7, pawn takes f7, rook takes f7, that's just fine. It's just fine. I can go to e6, queen to d6, rook a e1. And we will have a good game later on. I mean, white can continue. Maybe white has a little bit of an edge with the activity of his pieces, so the queen, bishop, knight, and the rook, right? And black is a little bit disorganized, yeah? So knight f7, the wrong timing, yeah? He was lost in the woods, yeah. Lost in the wood, mammy, shucks, Jordan in the forest from here. Okay, so after rook takes f7, takes f7, takes f7, oops, takes on f5, now c4. Black gets two minor pieces for a rook. Takes on c4, knight takes f5 first, takes on a6, knight e6. Okay, after, let's say, knight e6, we have queen f3, bishop c5, threatening. Bishop goes to d3. Okay, takes the pawn. Observer wants to get rid of that pass pawn, right? The outside pass pawn. You have to, yes, you have to sense the danger because that's a dangerous pawn. So after rook takes a5, queen takes a5. Now black doesn't have to worry about any pass pawn. h4, h5. Second one is the king. For king safety, regroup. All right. So knight goes back to e8, regrouping into f6, taking care of h7, taking care of the king. So after c4 takes, bishop into h7, just king f8, yeah. Pin, knight f6, that's it. When the knight, okay, for example, when the knight is beside your king is safe. The knight takes away that check on d5, it controls d7 as well, and it protects h5, yeah. So the scope of the knight protects the king and also the surrounding squares, yeah. So rook into c1. Okay, queen to c7. Nice move by Mamijaro, protecting b7. It's also an indirect protection of the c4 pawn. Because the rook cannot take on c4, we have bishop takes f2. It's a discovered attack on the rook on c4. Okay, we call that one an indirect protection of the c4 pawn. Okay, after king g2, bishop into d4, centralized bishop, pass pawn. Pass pawn, two minor pieces for the rook. The principle of two weaknesses, yeah? Queen goes to a8, c3, pass pawn must be pushed. Queen to a2, again, if the knight is beside the king, the king can hide. King g6, queen c2, king h6. Queen goes to d3, attacking the bishop. All right, tempo. Intermediate check on the king. f3 or queen b2. Double attack. So rook c2, queen b1. All right, okay, the queen is an overworked piece here. It's protecting c2, so he cannot capture d4. Queen f5. Okay, the threat is queen g5 check. Mamijaro protects with bishop e3. No checks. King goes to h1. And the final move by Mamijaro, queen to d1. And here white resign. Because white is virtually in zugzwang. Yeah. White cannot make any piece that white moves is a losing move. For example, he plays g4, just queen h1, yes, check. If you go king g3, ace takes g4, takes on g4, now we have knight e4 check. That's why queen h1 to protect that knight on e4. And you lose your queen. Yep. So that's the thing. If you play the rook somewhere, okay, let's just say rook a2 for whatever reason. Okay, just bishop d2, yeah. And then the queen can go queen h1 mate, is blocking the defense of the rook into h2. Because if rook takes d2, just queen takes. That's protecting g5, okay, and then you can push the pawn. Or even pawn takes also is just winning, because there's no mate, there's no perpetual. Sorry, king h7. If you check once again, just g6. You take the knight on f6. It's queen h1 mate. All right. So queen d1. After queen d1, Van Forest resigned. Yeah, and Mamijarov is tied for the lead with 3.5 out of 5. He is tied with Vidit. I think Caruana also won his game, and Rapport is going to win his game against Pragnananda. So it's going to be a four-way tie for first. Carlsen is also close to winning. So that's it. Congratulations to Mamijarov. Van Forest had a chance in this game, but again, he was just lost in the sequence of the move, right? Playing knight f7. If he inserted queen h3, it could have been a different result. But it happens in a game again. We all make mistakes, yeah. And on this day, it was a lucky day for Manijarov. All right. I hope you liked again our presentation for today. And thank you so much for the continued support on our channel, Charles Mac Chess. And for us as well, we are here also to give you more fun and exciting chess in the near future. This is Coach Oliver. I'm signing off. Bye.